Welcome to the Instinctive Influencers podcast, a show where influence becomes one of your tools for success. Now, here are your hosts, Brian Weber and Ed Haley.
Hi, I'm Brian.
And I am Ed.
Wait. We just had a whole conversation about this.
Conversation. So
what are we going to go with? We're going with...
No, so here's the thing, right? So I figured this is 101 episodes. I feel like I'm familiar with our fans now. And usually people I'm more familiar with, such as you, I actually always go by James. I really don't go by Ed. That was my father's name. And I've never really used it except in a professional environment when I was a civilian selling furniture. I used to go by Ed, but yeah, it's super rare. So I decided, despite the intro, that no, I am James.
So first thing, let's start this off with, I'm a little disappointed because I always thought you went by Ed, and now I've got to make a change, and this is going to be a difficult change, my friend. So, but that's okay. I'm not worried about it. I know where we stand, and one day we'll tell the story of why we stand there. So we always bring it up, but we never talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, wow, man. 101 episodes. Last episode we did with our wives.
So much fun.
It was, and listeners may feel like, well, we thinking we go bigger about it, but it's like, that is big to us. Like to have our wives on there and to be able to talk about those lessons and to get intimate in a sense, if you think about it. Like it was a conversation. It wasn't, and it was one of those, it was a fly on the wall. Mm-hmm. And that's what I was hoping we'd get from it. And it was just nice. It was nice seeing your spouse and then have my wife involved. I enjoyed it, man. But we are at 101. And
101
on my shoulder. Yeah, hey, I'm excited. Like most of the stuff in this room, right? To include what's behind me is 101 stuff. And it's because I spent 16 of 23 years there.
Yeah.
Like that's a long time to spend it on, but there's so much heritage, so much. I mean, and we're going to get into a great topic today, Ed, that I think it's definitely another leadership lesson from history, but it's about the 101. And that is one of those organizations that just stands up there. And we may have some 82nd guys listening. We may have some first cap guys. That's okay. However, this is 101.
I'm another one of those. It is different. And I'm excited that I'm going back there. And then I actually have to change, my prior wartime service patch, because what I've always said is I wear the first Cav because that's where I spent the most of my career. But it's gonna be a close call. I'm pretty sure now when I retire, I'll have spent most of my career in the 101st.
101. Yeah, exactly. No, hey, I there's no way that I could, like, literally physically, no way I could spend more time any other location the rest of my career that I'm allowed in the Army. Like, there's no way. It's physically impossible. So it's forever in my heart. It's forever my home.
Yeah.
It's forever my place. And we'll move back there, there's a lot, to talk about today. The one thing I wanted to hit upon, I love your hat, D-Day hat. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. One also.
Yeah. So this is funny. I'm getting ready for the show, and I'm like, you know what? I need to put something on that's appropriate. Here's the deal. I own nothing that I can wear that's 101 unless it's a uniform.
Oh, no.
Joke.
I
have no t-shirts. I have no hats.
Really?
No joke, man. It just feels weird. But in the closet that's literally right there that has a printer in it, and that's where I keep uniforms and stuff. I don't know if you do this. I keep a uniform, like all the different ones we've worn throughout the year. So I have like all the wartime ones, like everything from BDU to desert to
chocolate
ACU,
chips.
Yeah, all the. No, I didn't have chocolate chips. I'm not that old. But every single one of them, except for one, has the 101 patch on the sewn on, because the one I don't is when I was with 4ID last year. But it was weird. I'm like, how do I not have any 101 stuff? But I know you do. You have more than I do.
I have a few, but also, so we used to play in the Commanding General's monthly golf tournaments, the Payday Scrambles, and you would win gift certificates. So I have like some Cole Park golf course shirts with the eagle on the sleeve there, and then of course I've been to where we're going to talk about today, to Bastogne, and I've been to Normandy. And my wife just mentioned today that we still need to make it up to Arnhem, which is also another big 101 location.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely,
yeah, I have a few things of old Abe.
All right, so sad news. You brought up Cole Park. They closed the restaurant, man. That's what I was told.
What?
That was our eatery.
The Catfish?
Yeah, man. The joint, they had the awesome buffet there. We have some friends back home. He's a retired sergeant major. And they go up. They live in Dixon, and they go up all the time. And they said they went up there and they said that the restaurant was closed. I'm hoping it's a temporary thing. I really do, because that was a place to go. Cole Park Commons. If you're familiar with the Clarksville area, the Fort Campbell area out there, listeners, that was the place to go, because you got a good meal for a good price.
Southern Buffet. Oh, man. The catfish there. The catfish nuggets. Man.
Hey, man, when we used to go there at lunch sometimes, and I would leave there and I would think to myself, I don't know why I'm going back to work. I need a nap right now.
Hey, every time we did like a farewell lunch when I was running the warehouse, like that was the destination, man.
Yeah. It didn't matter. Yeah, that was the place. And I don't see, and that's what I told Michelle, because Michelle's the one that told me about it. I'm like, I don't see how that place could lose money and not be making money. And I'm wondering if it's maybe just like a temporary thing, because the whole
it might be a COVID thing, because it's a buffet too, right? Like, I don't know what the COVID restrictions are.
Yeah,
in Kentucky, Tennessee right now, so maybe it's a COVID thing. I hope it's only a COVID thing.
I'm hoping it's
gonna be sad. She's gonna be it. She might tear up because she marshaled there, right? Like, she marshaled at the golf course, and her friend Tom used to go there all the time. Like,
it's a special place, man. Special place. Yeah,
man,
and I guarantee you, anybody that's listening, they know exactly the place, because it's like, that's the place to go. If you got especially if you have a quick lunch break and you got to be back to work. And when we worked at the academy, like, it was down the street, so we could zip over there. Yep. Man. Yeah.
Well, that's sad.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's not true. I hope it's not true.
Maybe they're renovating. Maybe they're making it better.
Oh, maybe that's what it is. I'm hoping so. Yeah. All right. Hey, so Ed, we're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to do it's basically, this is actually an article that we found. I don't remember if you found it, I found it. Actually, it took me a while to dig it up, because I know we had emailed it back, or we sent it back and forth messenger wise. This is an article written by a gentleman by the name of Victor Prince. And it's titled 7 Leadership Lessons from a Battle of the Bulge Veteran, 101st Airborne Division paratrooper. All right. And it goes over 7 leadership lessons that this particular paratrooper learned during his time with the 101, during his time at Bastogne in the Battle of the Bulge. But before we get into that, Ed, I have to say, and it's just the precursor, all the opinions and stuff, whether it be in this article or you and I stating, it's all that of these individuals or us. And it's not that of the U.S. Army, the U.S. government, or anything else. So we only represent ourselves. But this is an exciting article, wouldn't you say?
It is a good article. And I mean, I've been blessed. I've been to Bastogne.
Oh, man, I want to go.
I've been a number of times. Actually, it's one of those places that, like, because it's close enough for us that, like, we could literally wake up and say, "Hey, you want to go to Belgium for some waffles, or you want to go up there for some lunch?" And it's like, "Yeah, let's go to Bastogne." And it's like, "Okay." So,
do they just call them
the beer? The beer is delicious.
In Belgium, do they call them Belgian waffles or just waffles?
Belgian waffle. They play to us, especially in Bastogne. Bastogne's very Americanized.
Is it?
Yeah. Very. As a matter of fact, Brian, funny thing, there is a 101st museum in Bastogne.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 101st has its own museum there, and it's curated by Helen Patton.
Oh, tell the listener, who is Helen Patton, my man?
Granddaughter of General George S. Patton. So
exactly.
There's a few museums there, but yeah, that's one of them. Is the 101st has its own museum there. So, and we're going to get into a lot of things that I'm just like, every December they have this great big celebration, and it's got to do with a famous response during the Battle of the Bulge. But Belgium as a whole is really, it's a beautiful country. It's small. It's very heavily French influenced. So in that area, they speak German, they speak Belgian, they speak French, they speak English. So that's a good thing. My wife's French is not that great. Being Canadian, it should be, but it's
horrible.
But she has. No. When we went to Belgium, there's been a few times where her French has paid off for us. So
yeah,
but yeah, it's a nice area, and the town is yeah. I've done the tour. I've been to the barracks and I've been to the foxholes. And anyway, let's move on.
No. It's good to hear these things. I was talking with a friend yesterday, had a long discussion. Really good, actually. It's an episode I recorded yesterday with a friend, and I think it was either during the episode or before or after. Because we do the same thing. You and I, we talk before.
Oh yeah.
Then we have conversations during, and then we have conversations. And sometimes I forget what is recorded and what's not. But he was, and I was talking about that with him. I was telling him, hey, we're doing this episode. It's about Bastogne stuff. And he was totally into it. He was like, oh yeah, both time my times in Germany, I went there, and because he's a 101 guy too, just like us. And he just, he was excited. He said he's excited to hear this one. And he was a little upset that he didn't get to be on this episode right here.
Yeah. I'll tell you, bro, it's the first place we went when we got here. Well, technically the second. During the trip, we went to Luxembourg first because at the military cemetery in Luxembourg, that's where General Patton is buried with a lot of the American soldiers killed during the Battle of Bastogne or the Battle of the Bulge. So we went there because it's en route, and then we went to Bastogne after the cemetery. But yeah,
well, that's awesome, man. I say we're going to get into this article. I want to kind of go over the preface of it, kind of give an idea of where the author's coming from. So I was going to read these first couple paragraphs here just to kind of so listeners understand. And listeners, you can find this particular article. It was on LinkedIn actually. So that's a great source for a lot of good information. I've found so many awesome articles that I've shared throughout the years now through LinkedIn. But so like I said earlier, it is written by Victor Prince. And so here it is. He talks about at age 96 years of age, Dr. Frank Tanglerini. What?
I was waiting for you to pronounce his name.
Tanglerini. That's what Tanglerini, right? Would you call it that?
Yeah. You did well.
Frank Tanglerini is still a busy man, 96 years old. He's still a busy man with the energy and memory of someone half his age. After getting his PhD from Stanford, he became a renowned theoretical psychiatrist. No.
Oh,
I'm sorry. It's the light. I'm not getting the right light. It's physicist, not psychiatrist. I could really mess that up. Who even has a physics concept named after him. This is crazy. We're talking about a soldier from World War II who later down the road, and he fought in one of the most amazing battles of World War II to understand anything. And he's a physicist. He's a doctor as a physicist. That's crazy, man. He has just finished a paper about the disagreement over the Hubble constant, which is a measure of how fast the universe is expanding now. For fun, he is also trying to learn Italian on the side.
Well,
I mean, this guy, he sounds amazing, huh?
Yeah. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to learn Italian.
at 96 years old. Right?
Yeah.
That's the big thing. But in December of 1944, Frank was just another 20-year-old U.S. Army private. I remember those days. I don't think I was 20 though. As an engineering student in college, Frank was accepted exempt from being drafted, but he volunteered to join the Army anyway. That's that Greatest Generation stuff right there, Ed.
Yep.
He volunteered for one of the most dangerous units, the 101st Airborne Division, the legendary Screaming Eagles. They had jumped into battle at Normandy and at Operation Market Garden in the Netherlands. Made famous in the film A Bridge Too Far, and soldiers in the 101st would also be immortalized in HBO series Band of Brothers. Now, we've talked about that show multiple times, Ed, and how incredible that show is, and what makes the show so well. And we've lost a great number of these heroes, Ed, over the years since that show came out. But what was so remarkable about it is I don't know how you felt about the show. When it would open up, it always opened up with one of them speaking. Yeah. Wasn't that that's the most moving part to me, is those guys speaking on their experiences and going through, and then you get to see that. And they, not only did they speak up, they were also like on the side when they were making it, saying, do it this way. No, don't do that. This is how this is done. And it's like, that was realistic, Ed, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and it's funny too, because one of them I always remember, because I spent so much time at Fort Drum, New York, is he said that whenever it would be cold after his time at the 101st, he was always think to himself, well, at least I'm not in Bastogne. So, and the images, and just, I mean, unreal. Yeah. It is. So, and I don't know if you've ever got a chance to watch A Bridge Too Far, but A Bridge Too Far, it has some inaccuracies, which any military movie or show has inaccuracies. Yeah. But A Bridge Too Far is actually pretty good too, and it has at the time, I mean, it has an all-star cast. I believe Robert Redford might be in that one. I know Sean Connery's in it. Michael Caine is in it. Yeah, Michael Caine is in it. But it's pretty good.
Yeah. It's so it's funny you brought up the Bastogne thing. I've throughout my years, especially as that particular episode that you're talking about, I actually have a picture of McAuliffe and then his two beside him holding up the sign like that. And I've had it in the office I worked in, or actually, it's funny, it's downstairs in the garage gym.
I remember you having it.
Yep. And I keep it up there. And when it's too cold to work out or whatever, I look at that and I think to myself, the same exact terms is, at least it's not Bastogne, you know what? And I'll warm up and I'll figure it out and I'll get through this. And that was one of the reasons why I kept it in my office when we were instructors, because I enjoyed when people would ask me something about it. And then I would just go straight into that. And I'd be like, yeah, you know what? You may be having a hard time right now, but at least you're not in Bastogne. Go watch Band of Brothers.
Yeah. Well, so I have on the corner of my desk at work, I have the figurine. It's a little statue of that picture.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I got it from the War Museum in Bastogne. But I want the sign, because if after this wonderful career is over and I teach, I think it'd be something cool to have as a history teacher, is that yellow Bastogne, battered Bastogne sign. Yep. I told my wife, I said, next time we go up there, I think I'm going to try to find, I'm sure the museum has it. I'm going to get the sign and purchase that. We have a magnet of it, but I definitely have McAuliffe standing there by the sign. Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't we have one in your hallway that you taught in as an instructor initially? Wasn't there a Bastogne sign there? Yeah. It was the same one.
Yeah.
All right. Wait, as we digress, because we're running down these cat holes, these different type of rabbit holes.
Let me get out of the rabbit hole.
After shipping to England in October 1944, he joined the 101st Airborne and trained there in Hungerford in parachuting. Frank finally made it to the rear lines in France in late 1944. He and his fellow soldiers were replacements for the 101st, who had taken casualties over the months of fighting since D-Day in Normandy and in Holland. Frank had yet to see action. That all changed on the night of Sunday, December 17th. Frank still remembers a sergeant interrupting everyone's sleep to announce that the Germans army had broken through the front lines in Belgium. They were told to get up because they were heading out to join the fight in what would be known as Battle of the Bulge.
Mm-hmm.
Over 600,000 American troops would fight in the Battle of the Bulge, and it was the largest and bloodiest single battle fought by the U.S. in World War II. That's craziness. What you got, Ed?
So part of it too. So I know the article doesn't say it, but the significance of Bastogne. So Bastogne has been fought over many times throughout the course of history. There's been a few times. There's been instances of the Germans used the Ardennes several times in war, but they would avoid Bastogne. They would go around it. But the significance to Bastogne is it had 5 roadways that ran through it plus rail. So it was like a hub.
Oh,
So with the Germans, originally when they start this thrust, right? Because they're trying to make one last offensive. They're after the port of Antwerp because that's a significant port following D-Day for the U.S. to get supplies into the theater. So they're after Antwerp and they make this thrust. But that was the significance of Bastogne and why it was like everybody was adamant. I mean, Hitler said, you will not give up on Bastogne. He wouldn't let his guys fall back. Our guys were like, we are not giving up, and we're going to get into our guys not giving up, but that kind of paints that picture.
No, they didn't. And it's funny how we learn like what they've done, through that entire battle. I mean, it's the smallest things that we may see as small, but we don't realize how critical the things were going on. Like it's the things like no boots, or no socks and boots, or, you know what I mean? Like those small things, they played a big role. And guys wearing jump boots out there in the middle of the cold, we're talking in like really cold weather. And I don't know how many people out there have actually worn jump boots, but they're not insulated. It's literally just a leather piece, and it's a hard leather. So, you feel it.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then so with this, Brian, what's significant is following Holland, the 101st is refitting. They're at a place called Camp Moormelen, and they're refitting at the time that they get this call. And so they just go. And it's like people were on leave. People were in Paris on pass. They were like, hey, we're going with what we got. Get on the trucks. First of all, this poor guy goes through all this training to be qualified to jump out of an airplane, and he's going to get trucked into Bastogne. So they leave. Some of them leave without helmets. They leave without weapons. They leave without proper cold weather gear.
Yeah.
And that's where the supply shortage has already occurred as they move to Bastogne, but then the siege is just going to make that even worse for them because now you can't get the stuff in. And then weather, of course, plays its role. So,
hey, why don't you take us into this first leadership lesson, Ed, and we'll just bounce back and forth like we always do.
All right. Let's see what we got here. Well, the first lesson is recognition is a two-way gift. The 75th commemoration of the battle in Belgium was a big deal. Unfortunately, I did not get to attend. I forget why. I think COVID. I don't know. The Speaker of the House attended, generals, ambassadors attended, but the real star of the meeting were the veterans. Frank's son Dan joined him on the trip and described it this way. He was treated like the hero, the rock star, the deeply respected person I've always known. It was great to see random people walk up to him and thank him and ask him for his autograph. I felt like I was with one of the Beatles. And then it goes on. So there's a leadership lesson associated with it. And I think I'm stealing some thunder for later. But when they have these reunions, one of the things that I liked, and we went on one of our tours, we were at the barracks, and they tell the story of one of the reunions. And what they did is the organization there in Belgium, they raised money and they provided all the veterans with iPads. And they showed them how to use iPads to communicate with each other, to open up that with their families. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Even the Germans who showed up, because they had some Germans who they invited to this event, and they came and they provided them with the same kind of respect and admiration of the U.S. soldiers, because at the end of the day, they still fought in that winter, whether, their belief system, if they even believe, but, they had their mission and they were there to fight and to uphold their mission. And you'll see a lot of great stories about U.S. soldiers from that generation, and meeting with Germans, their German counterparts, and sharing a beer, a glass of wine. And so that's one of the things. And I mean, at this point, the U.S. and allies are liberating these cities. And so that's why somebody like this comes back and they're held in such high regard, because, I mean, maybe without the 101st, Belgians are speaking only German, could have been a different outcome. So that's kind of the key thing, Brian. So you got anything to add before I get into the actual leadership lesson associated with this?
No, I'm actually fascinated with that idea of you're bringing the two sides together, and it's like things come full circle, right? I mean, a lot of things happen throughout the years, but the fact that individuals, men, human, they can come back together, and it's no longer about a grudge. It's really, I guarantee it was about loving one another again, and like we don't. What people don't understand, in a sense, a lot of times they just see us as this entity, like we're the armed services, right? And once again, I'm not speaking for the service, but we're war fighters. That's what we are, right? Straight up, like our primary job, and there's, if you go through and if you want to understand like unified land operations and understand like what our job is, there's certain things that we're supposed to do. First, we're supposed to prevent war as much as we can. But if we can't, we need to prevail in war, right? And then we also need to be able to consolidate gains. And so, like, there's these elements. And looking at it and then seeing this side of things from such a, I guess you say, historic battle. It does. It makes me feel a certain way. I get goosebumps just thinking about, like, we're getting into some go for the leadership.
All right, let's go for the leadership lesson. So this is important too, because I've talked about before. I love going to DC for Memorial Day for our Vietnam vets. It's kind of the same ideas here.
Yeah.
We recognize accomplishments of others to thank them and to share examples of what success looks like. But another reason is we want to be part of their success too. By recognizing others, we aren't just giving them a gift, we are getting a reward too. When you go, if you get a chance ever, Brian, to go to DC during Memorial Day weekend, that place is jam-packed with Vietnam veterans. And I mean, to see some of them are these burly guys, because it used to be called Rolling Thunder. I don't know if they're still calling it that, but it was like a bike rally.
They are.
Yeah, so these big burly guys breaking down at the wall, crying because of a friend that's name's up on that wall, but you want to recognize and you thank them for their service. And that one phrase means so much to them. Hey, thank you for your service. I love when a Vietnam veteran thanks me for my service, because then I say, no, thank you for your service, because they were what they came back to, right? So I think that's what this leadership lesson is all about, is we want to share in their accomplishments. We don't want to steal it from them. We want to share in that pride of their service.
Yeah. Hey, so Ed, one of the things you brought up, like those comments back and forth, and a big one, service members, they may or may not understand this at times, but I learned this throughout the years, is if a Vietnam vet says to you, welcome home, that's a big compliment, a huge compliment. And it's important. But I want to kind of flip this a little bit about that leadership lesson. It says recognize accomplishments of others. This falls in line, Ed, with what we talked about: praise in public, punish in private. Right?
100%.
And that praise in public piece, that falls in like love languages type thing. If anybody knows who Gary Chapman is, and if you don't, I recommend you look at his love language. But he also has another one about appreciation in the workplace, and that praise in public. That's a key thing as a leader. If you're understanding the soldiers within your formation, you have people who don't want that praise in public. They don't mind that you just walk up, pat them on the back, and say thank you. It's getting to know people. So that's a key thing. So I would definitely say that, that particular leadership lesson that anyone can take at any level of leadership, and just learn to praise others for the good things that they've done. And I love it, man. Good one.
Yeah. So real quick, Brian. So that, it's funny. The one thing I used to struggle with when we started doing this whole global war on terrorism is being thanked. When people say, "Hey, thank you for your service," and I was like, "But what's the response?" Because I felt like I was just doing my job.
Yeah.
And then it was years later, a wise NCO told me, he said, "Just tell them, hey, it's my pleasure," or just give them something, because that's what they want. They want that. They're giving you something, but they want a response too. So just give them some, hey, it's my pleasure. It's my honor to serve, whatever it is. Because I used to really struggle, and they'd be like, "Hey, thank you for your service." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, okay." Like, you don't know. You didn't know what to say, I'm just going to work. Like, my work may be Baghdad, but I'm just going to work. But it is important because they want to share in that. And they, that makes them feel good. So, all right, Brian, we're ready.
All right, we're going to go to number 2. Number 2 is be flexible. Whew, man. If I get
yoga.
Do lots of yoga.
Lots of yoga.
So Frank was an elite paratrooper trained to enter into a battle by jumping out of a plane, which I will tell you. Yes. Your wife brought it up yesterday because we actually recorded 100 yesterday, and then we're recording 101 today. She brought up the whole idea of jumping out of plane. I just wanted to remind you.
Your wife's jumping with her, so it's fine.
But he arrived at the Battle of the Bulge in a truck. After driving many hours, the truck dropped them off on Tuesday, December 19th in Bastogne, Belgium. He soon was told they were surrounded by Germans. He was glad he had not jumped, because the Germans would have easily picked them off as they floated down. That's a key thing, right? Because you get to think about, like, there are certain rules of engagement that are posed to different sides, and whether you're following the Geneva Convention or this rules of engagement, ROE, that's one of those things, like, we may have been following, right? However, the bad guys weren't, and there's something to be told about irregular warfare. And that's one of the things we do learn here. We talk about, and I think we actually had to write it. I remember we wrote a paper on irregular warfare and its effects. It's a real threat, and it's something else. So the leadership lesson real quick, Ed, before I get you in on this being flexible and doing yoga. Don't assume your job will go exactly like your job training told you it would. Be flexible enough to apply the core lessons you learned in any environment, operational environment. All right. So understanding your operational environment, understanding that I may not have the skills that directly affect this environment. However, I can play upon the things I've learned throughout the years. I talked with my buddy, John Bonilla, yesterday, and we did this thing, and he was talking about, and people are going to hear this next episode. It's funny how we recorded all this. It's crazy.
But we just made it happen.
No, exactly. And so being flexible, that was one of the things that we kind of get into. And it's like, he showed up to an organization. He was supposed to be a sergeant first class platoon sergeant.
Yeah.
He showed up. He had to become the sergeant first class platoon sergeant and the company first sergeant. So he had to do both roles. He had to be flexible. Ooh. Yeah. And he goes into this a little bit of detail about it, Ed. And with it, it's like he didn't know what he was doing. He even said that. He said, I don't know. I didn't know what I was doing. I was uncomfortable, but I had to learn to become comfortable quickly. And what he did was he reached out to his peers. He reached out to his seniors. He learned from it. And then he said to himself, it's like, okay, what got me here? Then I need to capitalize on that and continue to improve myself. And that's a key. I think that's a key fact, Ed. What do you got, man?
Yeah, I mean, listening to you, it's just a team of teams, right? Those mentors are so important.
Yeah.
And then the ability to be, I think we, in the military, we're kind of forced into the flexibility piece to some extent, because I remember, and drove my wife crazy. First deployment. First deployment, be at the company, 1,800 hours. We're moving out, getting on the buses. All right. Get there, weapons draw, right? Like all this stuff. The family's there. kissy kissy. Like this is very early in the war in Iraq. So like, you know, the family's hanging out. Start to march to the no. Then they say, okay, no, scrub. No, you're not going anywhere. But the buses will be here in about 3 hours. So hang tight. So you hang out with your families, right?
Yeah, it's so uncomfortable.
3 hours later, all right, we're gonna march to the gym. Let's get in formation, say your goodbyes. Kissy, kissy, lovey, lovey. Let's get in formation. All right.
Yeah.
Forward, march. Rear, march. Yep, mission's been scrubbed. You guys are leaving tomorrow morning 07. Oh, by the way, the barracks have been sealed. Oh, by the way, everybody who lives off posts has gave up their housing. So my house became a flop house. Right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so my house becomes the flop house. Get up, get going. Everybody gets out the door the next morning, back to the company. Right? No, change plans. You guys aren't going to load up buses till 12. So this is just boom, 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 but the flexibility. And we talked yesterday on that episode with our spouses about Army Wise and that shit. Yeah. I don't know if it's easy to imagine if you haven't had to do it as an Army wife. But we're talking kissing your spouse who's going to get on a plane and go to Baghdad, right? 3 different times in 48 hours to think that's the one, right? Like I'm going to go through my emotions. I'm going to cry. I'm going to process it, right? She's going to do all these things. And then, oh, hey, can you come get me? We've been released again. So that flexibility is crucial in your personal life, in your professional life. And here, I mean, the poor guy went through all that airborne training, but I mean, it did work out for him, honestly. I don't know that the Germans at the time were playing by the law of war, the Wehrmacht. No. I feel like they probably would have taken some shots. So
you are correct. You know, it's any means necessary. Yeah, I mean, that's a remarkable. I cheers to you, my friend. It's a remarkable story of being flexible. That's. You know, it's funny. So spin off on that. I went to PLDC, Primary Leadership Development course, which is now, it changed to WLC and now BLC. But my time there, it was something else. One of the first things they said to us, hey, listen, you're about to become a non-commissioned officer. Be prepared for change.
Oh, man. It's a thing.
That was, and it is. It really is. And it's not to say that that's a weakness. That's not a weakness. That's not like a bad. It's a thing. Plans change because sometimes we don't see the elevated events that are taking place. Like for instance, your plane thing. It could have been as far as, okay, you didn't know it. Maybe they had an aircraft down that they had to get fixed, you know, and you got maintainers that are trying to do these things. And I know how it feels to be on that side of, I got to get this aircraft off the ground. So there's lots of things that we don't see. All we think is we're in our own little bubble. And it's like, I got to go through this again. Oh, I can't believe it. Right. But we're not thinking big picture. And I guess that's something I'm taking for this year of kind of being off from leadership roles and learning more about leadership. That's a big thing.
Okay.
Hey, you ready to give us lesson 3?
Yeah. We're going to ask before assuming. Frank's role was an assistant machine gun operator, a member of a 2-person team. He carried the tripod and the ammunition while his partner carried the barrel. As they marched from the truck to take a position on the periphery, his partner slipped and fell on the road. He was overloaded with too many grenades and equipment. Despite being trained to continue when others fell, Frank stopped, helped him up, and took some of his load from him. When he got to his position, the second lieutenant chewed Frank out for not following his training. Frank explained himself this way. But, sir, he had the other half of the machine gun. He figured that if he showed up with just the tripod, he would have been following the rules, but in a dumb way, since the barrel would have been left behind on the road. So he wouldn't be able to defend himself, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is an easy one, Brian. I mean, the leadership lesson here, Frank summed up his decision to break from his training this way. I did what I felt was the reasonable thing.
Yeah.
My take, don't assume your folks are being unreasonable when they do something differently than the way you would do it. This goes into knowing your people. This goes into listening to your people. This goes into checking your ego, because Honestly, what was he going to do with tripod? Throw rocks? Because that's all it was. He had a big metal bat and he could have thrown some rocks, but the meat and potatoes was back with this guy, right? And how long did it take him to help the guy shoulder some of his load? I mean, those things are heavy. If you don't know, I don't know exact weights back then.
There's a reason why they split it up.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they split it up.
Yeah. So just he used what he believed to be common sense and moved out. And honestly, that lieutenant probably chewed him out. But in the back of his mind, he was thinking, I would have done the same thing. So, yeah, I think that's important, Brian.
Ed, that story and then the leadership lesson, first thing came to mind, extreme ownership, decentralized command.
Absolutely.
Extreme ownership, decentralized command. Allow people to make good decisions and then talk about it later, figure it out. But, I mean, obviously, it's like this young LT, which it's understandable. Also, he was probably a young LT. He jumped to conclusions before he actually understood the situation. And as leaders, we need to make sure we understand the situation before we automatically blow off. I had a problem with this early on as a young NCO. I would tell you, Ed, where I didn't allow the situation to incubate a little bit in my brain and think about it. And instead I would pop off sometimes. And sometimes, and I would say 50% of the time I was wrong. Right. Other times it was just like, okay, yeah, you made a dumb move, but they need to learn from that. Right. And that's, great leadership lesson there.
Yeah. 100. Yeah. It is. Is it easy? Sometimes, but also if you know what I liked about it is he wasn't afraid to part from the training and use common sense, right? That fear wasn't there. It's like, you know what? I'll deal with the fallout from this. And then he just said, that's good enough. I mean, if you remember in Band of Brothers, in the episode about Bastogne, if you remember, the lieutenant shows up and he sees two medics in a foxhole. And he goes, what's this? Two medics in one foxhole? But what he doesn't know, because he just walks up, is those two medics were trying to situate what supplies they had. Here, you take this. You give me that. And then the first sergeant Lipton comes up and takes the LT to his, and of course the LT's like, where's my foxhole? And he's like, you missed it, sir. And then the first sergeant ushers him off. But that's another one where he jumped to that assumption that these two medics were in his foxhole together without knowing the full story.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. Yeah. Great point.
Excellent, Brian. What we got?
We got number 4. Deputies matter. Here we go. Platoons in the airborne units often had not one, but 2 second lieutenants. Oh, goodness, that's crazy. Because they were wounded or killed so often. The commanding general of the 101st had a deputy too. That was a good thing because the general of the 101st had been called back to the United States just before the Battle of the Bulge started. His deputy, General Anthony McAuliffe, was left in charge. McAuliffe was such a good deputy that his name is etched in history. And few remember the name of McAuliffe's boss. It's funny because I chuckled for a moment there as I was going to. I don't know who McAuliffe's boss was. I really don't.
Maxwell Taylor.
I didn't know. I don't know that. I know McAuliffe. Like I think of him as the commanding general at the time when he wasn't. He was actually the deputy.
So sorry, Brian. So what's really funny is McAuliffe wasn't even the next in charge. There was an assistant division commander as well.
Oh.
Yeah, there was another guy. So Taylor is in D.C. talking about downsizing the size of the airborne, right? The other general was Higgins, and he was in, let me see here real quick. Boom. He was in London, and they were talking about the Operation Market Garden. He was there for a lecture on that. So McCall's actually number 3 at this point in line.
Yeah, well, he makes himself known, and he is forever history.
He 100% with the 101. Does.
Forever, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So the leadership lesson here, carefully select and groom a deputy. And I want to interchange the word deputy real quick with a replacement. Okay, just think of it as who's your replacement. Yeah. And I'm gonna hit upon that in a moment. Everybody eventually has to hand over the reins at some point, expectedly or unexpectedly. Hey, leaders, if you're not working on training people to take your job, then you're missing the mark.
Yeah,
your job is to train them to take your spot and to move on and out of the way. It's this something that you and I, Ed, we've talked about multiple times, and we feel strongly about, is this whole idea of we are not staying in the Army forever. We can only stay in for so long. Somebody has to take my spot.
Yeah.
And I think we had this conversation just before, and we're not going to get into the details of that conversation because I think it's kind of tipping on some edges we shouldn't, because it's our own personal opinions. However, there's when you take on a leadership role at a senior non-commissioned officer level, and I really believe this. I really believe this as a Sergeant First Class, Master Sergeant First Sergeant, Sergeant Major, Command Sergeant Major. I think when you're in those realms, you literally have to look at, what am I doing to help this next generation strengthen up and take over for me? It can no longer be about you whatsoever. Like, you're going to if you're doing a good enough job, you're going to reap the benefits of it. But it's about doing that job. And part of that job is selecting the right people to take over. It doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter what race or ethnicity they are. It doesn't matter where they came from. What matters is, do they have the talents, or do they have what is the potential to take over, and are you doing your job to help them? That's what I get from Ed. What you got, brother?
No, I mean, we've talked about, and the one thing that I would pass on to you, Brian, as you go to the great place, is you will go to the National Training Center. I can almost guarantee it.
Oh, stop, please.
And as a senior leader, one of the things that I would emphasize is they're going to take out those key leaders and see what that next person can do, right? And the reason they do this is because that can happen in combat. Yeah. So that's one of the things I would give you as a lesson learned from the National Training Center is, believe me, that CSM might get wiped out, and they may be like, okay, Ops Sergeant Major, you're the dude now. Yeah. Or that squad leader, and they'll be, hey, Specialist Smugatelli, you're in charge, make a decision. So it's important to and that's in a training environment. But what about in the real world? I mean, it's crazy to think that, you could all of a sudden, like I said, McCall's third in charge. And then he is. Now he's the man. And in the next lesson, we talk about something he's confronted with where he would have never thought that was going to happen, because he wouldn't have thought he was going to be the man to make those type of decisions.
Yeah, that was a great point, Ed. I get really, really passionate about those ideas of grooming others. So we're moving on to number 5.
Oh boy, I'm glad I got this one.
I know you.
Did I get this one?
Yeah. I hope you did.
You got Deputies Matter. Yeah, I'm going off script. I got this one. So number 5, Brian, and I mean this. That old saying, beat a dead horse. This is our dead horse. Because we have beat this thing over and over, but it's because it's so important that we do this. Communication.
Yes.
We even talked about yesterday with the wives. I mean, communication. Communication is critical. So let's talk about it. So on the morning of December 22nd, some soldiers out in their position noticed some Germans approaching. 4 Germans, 2 NCOs, a major, and a captain, and they've got a white flag. So they stop them. The captain in the group spoke English, and he says, "Hey, we would like to see the American commander," and they have this note, right? So the major spoke to him. He says, "Hey, we want to see your commanding officer." So they blindfold him. They take him to the company commander first. Mm-hmm. So the company commander gets the letter from the German commander, and immediately, like, next thing you know, they're going to see General McAuliffe. They got to go to division with the letter. And so I am using as my reference today, Brian, the history of the 101st Airborne Division, the Screaming Eagles' first 50 years by Colonel Robert Jones. Got this at the museum on Fort Campbell a couple years back, and it has really been excellent for papers and stuff.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
So they get there, and there's Colonel Ned Moore is there with McAuliffe. He's the acting chief of staff, and the chief of staff reads the message, and it says, in exaggerated phrasing, it told of how the Germans had Bastogne encircled. All that was left for the Americans, it said, was the honorable surrender of the encircled town. The last two paragraphs of the note read, if this proposal should be rejected, 1 German artillery corps and 6 heavy battalions are ready to annihilate the U.S. troops in or near Bastogne. Annihilate them. So, all right. All the serious civilian losses caused by the artillery fire would not correspond with the well-known American humanity. The signature at the bottom was simply the German commander. So it was discovered later that this was Lieutenant General Heinrich von Lufwitz, the commander of the 47th Panzer Group. So then McAuliffe says to the chief of staff, well, what's it say? And it says, they want your surrender, he answers. And McAuliffe's immediate response was, nuts. Right? So now McAuliffe is going to sit down, and he decides to pen his response. And he's sitting there, and he says, I don't know what to tell them. So he asked his staff, gathered around him. And Colonel Kennard, who is his G3, right, spoke first. And he says, the remark of yours would be hard to beat. The first remark of yours would be hard to beat. And McAuliffe's like, well, what was that? And he said, you said nuts. And so that's what McAuliffe writes. He writes nuts. And so they go back and they get the Germans, and they're going to take them, and Colonel Harper, who's also part of staff, says, I'll deliver it myself. So he goes out. And it says, I have the American commander's reply. The captain asked whether it was written or verbal. Harper said, oh, it's written. And he handed it to him. The message was translated. The major asked, is the reply negative or affirmative? If it's the latter, I will negotiate further. So if you're going to surrender. And the colonel says, the reply is decidedly not affirmative. If you continue this foolish attack, your losses will be tremendous. And so he basically says, just so you understand what we mean by nuts, we're basically saying, go to hell. And I will tell you something else. So now, so this is the message, right? Nuts.
Yeah.
But then what McAuliffe does is he has the terms of surrender, the request for surrender, and his response. He has it drafted out, and he circulates it to the troops, which was a common thing. There's a lot of letters from Patton, from Eisenhower sent letters to everybody from D-Day. Yeah. So it's a normal thing. They had this big copier that they carried around with them, type machine.
Yeah.
But then what's that do for morale? That like our general is so defiant against these odds. Like, so what it does, it makes them want to fight more. But he communicated that through this medium. So it kind of shows, the nuts thing is, Brian, like I do, that is absolutely like one of the most historic moments in the 101st history. It's what puts McAuliffe on the map.
Yeah,
in the town square in Belgium.
Oh, yeah.
There is a restaurant in Bastogne, and it is called Les Nuts. And you go in there, and you can have an airborne beer served to you in a helmet, airborne helmet. But you can have airborne beer served to you in an airborne helmet that says Battle of the Bulge at Les Nuts, about 100 meters from a Sherman tank.
That's just crazy.
So, communication, Brian, it's critical.
I will tell you, it's funny that message echoes so much that I guarantee you, any soldier that ever attends a promotion board or a soldier month board, they will get asked who said nuts during the Battle of the Bulge, and they'll have to answer. Or what was General McAuliffe's reply to the Germans? And it's the easiest answer. And you're right.
Just
it's
one word. He replied one word.
But what we can take from this, Ed, like this, we beat that dead horse, just like you said. The communication piece. It's that one word, NUTS, and that's it. That one word echoed so many things to so many people, whether it be the vision of that organization at the time, it would be the morale booster, it's the go get, it's all these things. It just took one thing. And what happened? What was the result from this battle? We know. Yes. Did Patton show up, there and help out? Absolutely. However, for them to hold their own, in that particular battle, and where was I reading? I was reading it somewhere. It was about the scene in the Band of the Brothers, and it's almost like you only get a small glimpse. Like you see, like your view is only that of that one little organization of the whole division.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody had said in this article that I read that you don't understand, like that was a whole that was one company of a whole division of people going through this battle, and it was big. It was real big. So to communicate, that's critical for any leader. Communicate. When you stop communicating, you stop being transparent. When you stop being transparent, it's time to go.
So it absolutely, Brian, and it was such a big. It was about 4 or 5 different like smaller engagements that made up the Bulge, because the U.S. had lines on all sides of the compass, right? Like, I mean, the 82nd had a role at one point. Bernard Montgomery, but they don't talk about that in Band of Brothers. They talk about the 506 and Dick Winters, who also they show many times. Another horse that we've beaten up pretty bad. He is going foxhole to foxhole. He's checking on his men. He's checking on what they're how much ammo do you got? How much do you have any morphine? Like, he is moving the whole time too. And that's that walk around leadership that we've talked about, but it's also that communication, checking on my men, right? So.
Yes, absolutely, man. Hey, great point. All right. So we got 2 more leadership lessons. Number 6, secrecy is sometimes important too. So we have communication, but we also need some secrecy sometimes. When I asked Frank how his position fit into the bigger picture of the defense of Bastogne, he replied this way: I have to admit, I didn't know much else was going on. And we weren't supposed to keep a diary. They didn't want us to know anything. If we were captured, they didn't want us to know beans. We had very little information. They didn't want us to know beans. That's so it's so typical of the era, like using they didn't want us to know a hill of beans. The first time Frank saw where his unit was dug in during the battle was years later when he read a book about the battle. So he literally didn't even understand where he was in the situation until years later. Now, he obviously, so the communication of Nutskate got out to them. Hey, we got to keep fighting on. We got this. You guys are stronger than them. All that was there. But it was the idea of also, hey, we have to make sure that we're basically playing this massive chess game, right? We have to, I'm going to continue on and then I'll hit my point there.
All right.
He also shared another example of when being secret was helpful. A German armored vehicle drove up to us, not a tank, but something smaller that was probing. Our orders were to stay quiet and not shoot. Don't let them know what we have up here. Only one person fired a bazooka, but the armored vehicle turned around and sensing a trap or something, so we didn't have a firefight. I mean, we could look at it this way. If they didn't keep quiet, that could have turned into an even more treacherous situation, in the longer haul of the battle. It's that understanding, like, as a leader, like knowing what to keep to yourself, what not to keep to yourself, that is a critical point. And whether it be a civilian organization, military, whatever, community organization, it doesn't matter. Sometimes information just needs to be withheld, because what you don't want is you don't want to create assumptions. You don't want to create, you don't want to fuel the rumors. Thank you very much. However, you also got to be able to let out certain information to quell the rumors, to stop the rumors from getting too much and creating a cancerous toxicity within the organization. So it's like it's a really fine line you have to walk as a leader, of knowing when you can put out information, when you can't. And it's funny. I think, to me, this is a big part for informal leaders, and having the support of those informal leaders to help keep the organization straight. Right. So what are your thoughts on this? Wait, I didn't even get to the leadership lesson. Communication is important, but not everybody needs to know everything.
Yeah. No. So, when you talk about the secrecy, I mean, listen, Brian, at this point, these guys are running low on supplies. I don't know if I'm General McAuliffe. Do I want them to know that I'm telling my artillery guys, hey, you can only shoot 10 rounds a day? Do I want them to know what the real situation, how dire our situation really is? Hey, there's no more morphine. I mean, at some points they were starting to run out of small arms rounds, and they had to start rationing that stuff. So if I'm at the top, maybe that's something I don't want down to the lowest level, because I don't want to, dishearten them. I don't want to take away their will to fight. It's coming. I mean, obviously they may have known. They knew the weather was bad. They knew airdrops weren't happening. When you watch the episode on Band of Brothers, they talk about the fog wouldn't lift, and when they did drop stuff, they dropped it to the Germans. It took a while, so I mean, eventually do get that. So those are the type of things maybe they didn't want to know, and so you do have to realize, I want to share as much as we can. We talked about back with Kevin Krause about share everything. Mm-hmm. But I think back even in that episode when we talked about that, we said, I don't know if I'm 100% on board with that, though. He was talking about sharing salaries and stuff. Maybe you got to really, and I think that comes from your experience. I think that comes from your leadership. I think that just comes from the situational awareness. Yeah, I can share these, but I should probably hold this closer to my chest right now.
It's what you just said, that experience in leadership, like that literally reminds me of something called the art and science of leadership.
Yeah,
like there's an art to it, and there's a science.
100% it's an art. Yeah,
and you have to know where to use the art or the science. So yeah, great point, bro. Hey, we're on our last one, and I like this one because it plays near and dear to my heart, especially in the aviation community, because of how dire it is.
It plays near and dear to mine because I've also been involved in a similar situation. Frank shared the following story. So number 7 is safety first. Always safety first. So Frank shared this story from his soldier days. I tried to do some leadership myself. When we traveled in the trucks, I always made sure there was no bullets in the cartridge and the safety was on. A tragic episode took place in a truck I was in. All of a sudden, I heard a bang. One soldier had a bullet in the chamber and didn't have the safety on. A rifle cleaning tool he had on him caught the trigger. The bullet went through several soldiers. The soldier whose gun went off was lying closer to the back of the truck than I was. Otherwise, I would have been one of the victims. We had to take them out of the truck. One of the soldiers I helped said, I made it through Normandy. I made it through Holland. I made it through Bastogne, and I get wounded like this. Similar, not as tragic, obviously, but I was going on R&R, first R&R ever in Iraq. I don't know if you remember the old Hunter boxes. It was they had the back of the truck with the steel. And so we get to the airport, Baghdad International Airport, and we're clearing our weapons, right? So we're getting down, or we're handing our weapons down. Soldier does not hand her weapon down. She decides she's going to lock and clear it in the truck. The round goes off, hits that steel, deflects into my battle buddy's calf.
Oh.
Yeah. So he is, at first, it's like just a little bit of blood. It's like, oh, it must have just nicked you. But I'm telling you, once he moved, it just flowed. And so, it's not tragic like this, which I'm so thankful for. But for him, it's just that safety, like just hand it down. We weren't even dismounting the vehicle. They had somebody down there. They were like, here's what you do. Do the right thing. Hand it down. One person doesn't hand it down. And what ends up happening is he can't fly because he just got shot. We got to get him to the aid station. So everybody's delayed for their flights. He's thinking about going home and seeing his family. Again, this is 0405. So this is very early in our experiences as a combat force, right? Like it's the first time some of us have been over there. And all these, there's this ripple that comes from just safety first. I mean, I don't even know what the leadership lesson says here, but I mean,
you're going to give your own.
Well, I mean, I know safety first, right? But what they say, and he gives another example of this, but job number one in any workplace is safety, and leaders are responsible for ensuring the workspace is safe. That's not true. That's not true.
I know what you're going to go with this.
But it's not 100% true. No. Everybody is a safety, Brian.
Yes.
Everybody is responsible for not just the lead. This makes it seem like just the leaders. So a little disagreement, but not wrong, but incomplete. So that's a better way of saying it. And they may not be as glamorous as the other parts of the job, but it is table stakes to do all the rest. From my COO days, I remember beefing up our physical security force as a thankless decision that we made that helped me sleep better. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you, I ain't going to say what organization, but I have family members that work for an organization. I'm telling you, if you get called on camera and you're not using the handrail, you'll be looking for a new job. Like,
really?
Yeah. If you get caught, because it's a compound, if you don't use the crosswalk, you'll need a new job.
No,
it's on a compound.
Wow.
Yes. Because safety because think about the dollars that cost the organization, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't cross the crosswalk, somebody doesn't see you get hit, you're out of work. Right? Mm-hmm. Maybe that person's out of work. Maybe they work for the company too. Where's the lawsuit fall? Because that could be coming. So that you cost the company money. I mean, we're not even talking military now. We're talking civilian. Even here, I am very big on cross at the crosswalk. Especially, I hate when you see somebody cross the street and then there's a crosswalk 15 feet up. Like, just go to the go to the crosswalk. Because in Europe, I'm gonna tell you, if you don't stop for somebody in a crosswalk, you're gonna mess around and get a ticket, a big ticket. It's a big deal here. And actually in Rome, side note, in Rome, if you go like this, the cars will stop and let you cross. It's the only place I've seen it work. But so safety first, very important, Brian. What do you think? What do you think? Future Command Sergeant Major Brian.
Stop. No, it is probably up there. It's right up there beside what I said earlier about training those to take over for you. We've said this on the show before, Ed, about like talking like to the groups and talking to people. If you're saying it so much that you think you're saying it too much, you're not saying it enough. Right. And that's how safety is. The way safety can be echoed is I've seen it. I've seen where people are working at a high rate of speed and they're ignoring, safety precautions. I talk about it with John. I seen twice, same incident. One was a civilian who did it. Another one was a soldier, both people who knew better on performing a specific task where if your finger gets too close to a specific fan in a helicopter, it will suck your hand in and it will cut off whatever gets in that fan because it's moving so fast, right? Yeah. Both of them, in both instances, both people, they lost just a small, like the small, very tip of their, like it was so fast. Exactly. Right. But it's echoing that safety. There's like, I used to tell, I've told soldiers before, there's a reason why there's a caution and a note or something else in the manual, and that can go anywhere else. There's a reason why it's there. Why is it there? Because something has happened.
Yep. Somebody's done it.
McDonald's cups. Yeah. This is hot. You're going to get burnt.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason. Yeah. So, as a leader, echoing that safety precaution, echoing the fact that, hey, you got to unload that chamber before you get in the vehicle. I got it. You know what? Maybe you're trying to save time in case you get attacked while you're in the vehicle. I'm telling you right now, you're going to be so sporadic, you're not going to notice anyways. And you're probably going to shoot your friend straight up.
Yeah.
Especially in the back of those trucks where you couldn't see out at the time. Now we changed things over the years and now the systems we got now, golly. But safety is critical. And you're correct, Ed. It's not just the leader's job. No. However, in any manual I've looked at, Ed, any manual, one key thing that always says the commander's responsibility. Doesn't say
ultimately.
Yeah. It doesn't say the soldier's responsibility. It doesn't say the first sergeant or the command sergeant. It says the commander's responsibility and almost everything. And normally that's tied to some type of decision point. And, and I will tell you, I've met multiple people that they will tie their decisions very close knit to safety. All right. And sometimes you can play it for your game.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to tell you, Brian, in my career, one of the scariest things that we do, the range. I am scared I'm not scared, but I'm very hyper vigilant at a range. Because it's not going to be you. Like, I'm the safety. It could be that guy 6 lanes down who does the wrong thing. And so you're always, that's the one thing in the military, my entire career, especially since I've become a non-commissioned officer, where you spend hours on the range as a safety or a coach. It is scary when you think about like one person not paying attention, that same female, right, that shoots the hunter box. What if that was on the range? That could have came right down the line and hit everybody between her and who knows. So it is a scary thing. And I mean, obviously we get, grenade ranges are even worse. Yeah.
Hey, I would love to be on the fly on the wall for drill sergeants of any basic training that has to go through that, because there are, I guarantee you they have their scary situations, and I would love to hear from our friends that have served in that position. I was never fortunate enough to.
Well, Brian, funny you mentioned that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we ran a live grenade range at Fort Drum when Joe was my platoon sergeant.
Oh, Joe Leone.
Yeah, he was my platoon sergeant. And so the soldier, they had me out there as a safety because you had to be E5 promotable, I think. It was their rule, right?
Right.
And this soldier threw this grenade and stayed up. And then, so for the listeners, they tell you, pull the pin, boom, throw it, get down. No. This soldier wanted to see where they throw it. And oh, by the way, this soldier was this wasn't Cal Ripken Jr. throwing this thing. Like, this thing only went about 6 feet.
Oh my goodness.
So I grabbed the soldier by the back of their helmet, right? And I ripped their helmet and pushed their face into the sand, and then I jumped on top of them. And you could feel the bunker shake. And the soldier says, I just want to see where it went, sir. I said, if you don't get out my face right now, I thought I had to come off. I told him, I said, hey, I got to come off that range for a few minutes, man. I got to get myself together.
Yeah.
He threw that thing and just.
Oh my goodness.
However, it feel good to grab by that helmet and flop on top of him.
You were living your WWE dream.
I mean, we worked with somebody, and they used to say the one thing I took away from them. I mean, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. Wow. That's the first time I've heard that story, man. I've never heard that before from you, but I could see why you were so like you had your moment. And you know what? There are times where people shouldn't go off. Like, I truly believe that was your moment and you were allowed to have that. And that was a righteous moment.
It was fun. I'll never forget this poor soldier came up. He was just caked in sand. He's like, I just wanted to see it, sir.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Get away from me right now.
Yeah, I could tell. And so this was something else, man. 101st, that's our thing. 101, episode 101.
I thought it was a good idea. It was a play on the episode number that we came up with. But we are both 101st guys. We've both been to combat with 101st.
Yeah.
So
many times.
Yeah. And then I'm going to Bastogne actually on Saturday this week. If my homework's done, I get to go to Bastogne.
If your homework's done,
yeah. The museum's been closed for 2 weeks for their yearly cleaning, so we're going afterwards. They have a huge museum there. They used to have a huge 100-foot VE Day statue, the sailor kissing the lady.
Oh,
yeah. They moved it, but before they moved it, Tammy and I were there, and she got her picture because that's one of her favorite images from World War II.
Oh yeah, the homecoming.
So we did get a picture with that, but we're gonna go check it out this weekend. I think they Yeah, it'll be a good time.
It's awesome, man.
And
hey, I wish you the best
nuts.
Take pictures. Shoot me in pictures. No, really, seriously. Like we've done a few history leadership lessons so far, and to me, I enjoy the other ones. Like, no joke, I really do, because I love talking about Washington. I love talking about the Gettysburg thing. But this one, and we actually skipped over one. We skipped over World War One. We'll probably have to go back and handle that one. Oof. However, there was a reason why this one was done, and this one. I mean, listeners, if you've never watched Band of Brothers, watch it. If you have, go watch it again and learn something from it. There's a lot to learn from it, and there's a lot to be gained. And if you're a soldier out there and you haven't watched it, you need to. All right,
especially if you know you're going to 101st.
You
might as well.
You might as well. And there's many others out there like the Pacific, and there's lots of different ones. But this was a great leadership lesson, Ed, that I think people really could take on as their own, and maybe even develop some stuff into it as their own. But as always, Ed, we are coming to the end of this particular episode, and because every episode, I know it's kind of sad. We don't want to end this. If we could get 101, 1 hour and 1 minute, but we passed that 16 minutes ago. So if people wanted to, kind of connect with us, they wanted to maybe tell us what they thought about these leadership lessons, offer up some different ones from the same Battle of the Bulge, or just, let us know their thought about the show. Is there a way, James? You like I did that? That they can connect with us individually or as a group?
Well, Brian, I'm glad you asked. So what the listeners can do is they can go out there, they can go to their favorite type of social media. They can look for 101 Influence, and they will find us, Brian. They will find us on Facebook. It's a closed Facebook page, but do not threat. All you have to do, answer a couple of questions. Once you've answered those questions, one of our dedicated staff will be sure to grant you access, and then interact. Get in there, start a chat, start a group chat, get something going, and then of course, Brian, now if they want to see us, they can go to our Instinctive Influencers YouTube page, subscribe, thumbs up, and then leave some comments, some kind of commentary, get something started, get a discussion going, so they can check us out on those various social media. 101 Influence, Brian, and notice 101. I'm just saying.
I was going to say it.
101.
Yeah. So for those of you listening, you may have realized it a while ago, or you may just now realize it. The whole like the search function or the @ whatever, like whenever you go into these social medias, you have to create your own handle, and I wanted a good play on the whole word influence when we came up with this. And I thought to myself, it's like, well, what influenced us to actually develop this show, to make it what it is? We were serving in the 101. We were a part of it's not called the 101st Basic Leader Course. It's actually called the John W. Krekel Basic Leader Course at the 101st. But it is a play on the word. It's a play on the number. And we were influenced while we were there. So why not keep it at that? But yeah, great point. I can't wait to see what people have to say about this one. And I'm excited about the next show, 102 with John Bonilla. And I'm going to talk about with him. We're going to have a discussion on learning to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Then down the road, Ed.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's fun. It was fun. And then down the road, Ed, we've got multiple battles, multiple other wars. We got to go back and hit World War I. We definitely want to hit on Vietnam War because that's a big thing. And we're going to hit upon the Korean War also between those two at some point. And Desert Storm, Desert Shield. Then the most recent one that took over almost 20 years of fighting and countless hours and manpower and stuff. So the global war on terrorism and peace. We're going to hit on all these. But in there, I sent you a link to some stuff. We're going to hit upon some more leadership stuff, and we're going to get more guests. You're talking to me. You were just talking to me about getting a certain guest on.
When I get back to Kentucky, Tennessee area, I know there's a few that we can line up then. So that'd be
Yeah, it's so it's funny. It just kind of before we go off, Michelle and I were talking about that. We're actually going to be in the same time zone again, so that's going to be great. That's going to be a plus. Yeah. And then being in that same time zone, and if we're setting up our interviews, like we'll both be able to participate in this, and that's what makes it easy. What a lot of people don't realize is like we're doing these interviews. If you're doing one or I'm doing one right now, it's like we're so far apart in time.
Oh man,
it's hard to coordinate that. You know,
yeah.
It's 9 o'clock in the morning here for me. Over there for you, it's what? Like 7, 6?
Right now it's 5 a.m. or 5 a.m. 5 p.m.
5 p.m. Yeah. So, but anyway, Ed, it was fun. I've enjoyed it.
So like I do have one side note, Brian, that I did want to mention because I know we were going to do an episode on Vietnam. Yes, but also a participant during the Battle of the Bulge. One of the lieutenant colonels was Crichton W. Abrams. And Crichton W. Abrams is going to be significant during Vietnam. And then I've also served under one of his sons. And then, that whole family and the tank is maybe named after him. Pretty sure. Think so.
Yeah. I've also served underneath one of them too.
Yeah. We affectionately actually used to call him when he was our brigade commander, son of tank. So not to his face, of course.
No. So he is something else. He's all over Twitter, and I love like following his and seeing all this stuff. He actually, I think he's retired now. Actually, he's retired now.
Well, there was a group of them. So I think there was 2 or 3 Abrams brothers. Mm-hmm. And I want to say there was a sister too.
Yeah, I don't know about the sister. I do know the brothers though.
They were all military, and I think they were all GOs at some point.
He's actually the last of the brothers that's still alive.
Yeah, he was my brigade commander in the Mighty 1st Cavalry Division.
Oh wow!
I can't wait. Fallujah. He was the brigade commander for Battle of Fallujahs. Both of them. Yeah,
I can't wait to get into that. That's gonna be a good one.
All right, man. Well, sweet.
Oh, that was wrong button. Wrong button. Here we go. My bad. I didn't mean to do that one there, everyone. But hey, again, we're so grateful for all that you and listening. With that, I am Brian.
And I am James.
He is James. And this has been the Instinctive Influencers podcast. We thank you so much for listening. Leadership lessons, you can find them everywhere.
Click, man. I live my influence. You